And hello, welcome to Open, the show that's opening the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I am Daren, Jaime, and today we're going to update you what's happening in and around our borough, as well as across New York City. Coming up, we'll talk about the dangers of book bans and the alternatives that are being explored. We'll give you more details a little later on in the show. Then after that, we'll discuss how one platform is helping the next generation prepare for personal and professional success. Then we'll talk about the importance of taking care of your mental health and what steps can be taken for those dealing with mental illnesses. And then finally, we'll discuss how one school is providing students with programs for academic, personal, and spiritual growth. So we encourage you to stay tuned because all this and much more is heading your way. Because right now, we're officially open. And hello, everyone. I am Daren, Jaime, and you are now watching Open, a live program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to you. We also want to welcome our viewers to the Manhattan Neighborhood Network as Open is being broadcast simultaneously on MNN's channels. You can stay connected to us on all of our social media platforms at BronxNet TV. Well, some things have been coming out through the past week, and we're going to take you through it with some Bronx updates. We kick off with health news. A food parasite has affected over 200 individuals in the U.S., causing an intestinal infection known as cyclosporasis. Now, the CDC reported that the parasite has spread across 22 states, including New York City, resulting in 30 hospitalizations since April. Cyclospora is a one-cell parasite typically transmitted when people consume contaminated food or water. Previous outbreaks of cyclosporasis has been linked to imported fresh produce. Now, the CDC has stated they have not identified any specific food items as the main sources of this illness. Well, in economic news, Assemblymember Chantel Jackson hosts a teen pop-up shop at Bronx Borough Hall. Our BronxNet reporter Kyrie Moody has the details.
Assemblymember Chantel Jackson hosts a teen pop-up shop at Bronx Borough Hall. This event shines light on high school students who are and aspire to be successful entrepreneurs in the future. Although Assemblymember Jackson couldn't make it, there were other elected officials in the building, such as Councilmember Kevin C. Riley and Bronx Borough President Vanessa L. Gibson. The students had a very special guest who is an entrepreneur, actress, and motivational speaker, none other than Love and Hip Hop star Yandy. Yandy, joined by the elected officials, went around table to table to see what these creative students had in mind for a possible business.
My brand name is Madi Modesty, and it's a mixture of streetwear and modest clothing.
My business name is called Blessings. Is the name. It's the words blessing and lessons combined together. And I got that from a traumatic experience that I went through about 2 years ago where I thought it was gonna be, over for me. But out of that, I was able to learn how to do hair, which is making me money now.
I go through anxiety, and through my anxiety, I go to God. I read the gospel. So through my business, I want to inspire other people that they'll be okay despite what they're going through, whether it's depression, anxiety. They'll be fine and they'll make it through.
Being a youth these days is certainly not easy. As you have heard, most of these CEOs have gone through some sort of trauma in their lives. However, look at what that trauma, depression, and anxiety made them into: successful young adults.
I feel like being a young entrepreneur is so that people could look up to me, not only to look up to me, to also empower themselves to, go for what they want and become who they want to be.
Not only were the students able to introduce their brand to elected officials, but they also received 3 citations from Assemblymember Jackson, Councilmember Riley, and Bronx Borough President Vanessa L. Gibson. This is important because these students are on their way to college, and these citations will look very appealing on college applications. With all this new talent and creativity in the Bronx, the future is not only looking brighter for these students, but for the borough of the Bronx. Reporting for BronxNet, Kyrie Moody.
And thank you, Kyrie. In other news, the federal government has given final approval to the MTA's congestion pricing program, making a significant milestone in establishing the first ever congestion pricing system in the United States. Now, while the exact total amount has not been set by the MTA, it is anticipated to fall within the range of $9 to $23 per day for driving a car into the central business district. The agency is considering major discounts for drivers who come in overnight and lower-income commuters without easy access to frequent transit service. Furthermore, the law exempts traffic on the FDR Drive and West Side Highway from the congestion charge. Well, that's all the time we have for our Bronx updates. We are taking a quick update, but we do have more open when we return.
We all know what it's like to feel alone. But it just takes one new connection. Want to get out of here? To empower many.
This is unbelievable.
It doesn't take a superhero to bring forces together. We all have the power to reach out.
Let's go!
And help someone feel like they belong.
Pretty cool, huh?
We are stronger together.
Most hiring algorithms would scream me out.
Some bosses couldn't see me as a leader.
I've run this place for 20 years, but I still need to prove that I'm more than what you see on paper.
I've been running code as long as I've been able to reach a keyboard.
This is what I do. It's second nature for me, coordinating 100 details at once.
It's the way my mind works. I have a very mechanical brain.
I sold them on my skills.
You gotta be so good they can't ignore you.
My magic is
analytics and empathy. That's how getting clients. You have to have the confidence in yourself to show up and defy the odds.
I'm more than who I am on paper.
I never got a college degree. And today, I'm the CEO of my own company. People want to tell me I'm one in a million, when actually I'm one of millions. Stars are all around us. It's time for them to shine.
And we are back. Recently, book bans and censorship have limited everyone's access to literature, especially in schools. Now, since 2022, there's been an alarming number of attempts to ban books, totaling over 700 instances, resulting in the prohibition of more than 1,600 unique titles. Now, these books, and I should say these book bans, actually pose a serious threat to the acquisition of knowledge among young learners, as they have the potential to create substantial gaps in their understanding and intellectual development. Joining me now is author and storyteller Alyssa Reynoso-Morris, and we thank her for sharing with us today here on Open. And Alyssa, let me go here, because when we hear book bans, the first thing that comes to mind is we've got freedom of speech in the United States. How do we get to the place of book bans?
Absolutely. Growing up, well, first, thank you so much for having me. Growing up in the United States with Dominican and Puerto Rican ancestry, I learned about Trujillo and his vicious dictatorship that banned books. And to hear that here in the United States, it sounds a little off. Like, what do you mean, land of the free, it's protected by our Constitution? But book bans have actually always existed in the United States, just not at the alarming rate that they have more recently. In the past couple years, like you mentioned, we are seeing thousands of books being banned, and particularly in schools. And as a former educator, that is really discouraging to me because kids deserve to see their experiences on the page. And when we ban these books, what we're actually doing is saying that their experiences don't matter.
Alyssa, so when we talk about this is a real simple thing. If I don't like a book, on my end, I just don't read it. I don't
Right.
call for it to necessarily be banned. But we're seeing, if I don't like a book, I make a little noise, squeaky wheel gets the oil. Now all of a sudden this book turns around. It's not in circulation anymore. And it's
Correct.
almost like we've taken, this gradual decline when it comes to this. What is the alternative other than I just don't read the book? What's an alternative that we can have for banned books?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I currently in this climate, what we need is for individuals to run for office in their schools, to advocate for their teachers and the librarians. We need to show that we support our teachers and librarians. They went through a lot of schooling in order to determine what books are appropriate for children, and then someone, is undermining all of that training. We also need to contact our state representatives, contact our local, congressmen and Congress individuals, because we have to tell them and we have to send that very clear message that banning books is not it's not in line with our culture as Americans, and banning books is not the way that we address issues.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest here. A lot of those books that we're talking about that are being tossed out have to, one, deal with sexuality or deal with
Yes.
race, right?
Right.
And culture. This is a microcosm of a macrocosm that we have here in America when we talk about those issues, race and culture, where we
Yes.
deal in a very conservative environment right now where people are really trying to say, you can't put this out here. I don't want somebody. But the reality is, when you look at it, when it comes to historical context, these aren't things in some history books that can be denied. It's actual history, but we're sitting here
Correct.
saying it's not important. To the student, to the reader, to the learner, what does that do when it comes to context and having a good historical context?
Absolutely. I think what we're seeing in our society is this denial of our history because it might be uncomfortable for some, but what we're doing is constantly trying to erase the experiences of marginalized communities. As a Black Latina, I didn't see my experiences on the page of a book. And now finally we're starting to see a little bit more representation. And then now we're also dealing with these book bans. So what we're seeing is that whenever the needle is moving forward with more representation for communities of color and LGBTQA communities, like there's always going to be a backlash. So we have to keep advocating for ourselves because our stories deserve to be told, and we cannot let this small radical group erase our existence.
Well, here's the other question that we really want to throw out is the question about literacy, because we understand right now in, let's take New York City. New York City literacy rates are not the greatest. We understand that children are not reading up to par, but yet and still, if somebody feels comfortable in grabbing a book and learning it and learning and reading from it, we understand that literacy can possibly, those numbers can continue to rise. But when you start taking books off the shelf, and particularly things that I'm not gravitating to, here comes a problem, because if it's not a book that I feel comfortable with, I may not be the one that decides to read. So what does it say with the literacy rates? Because you're seeing, first of all, a sharp decline, and second of all, with this now in place, there are some potential ramifications here.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought this up. Over 70% of children in New York, particularly in under-resourced communities, are not reading at their allocated grade level. And by third grade, more than 30% are not reading by that third grade level, which is extremely alarming. And so when you know that that's the reality, we have an illiteracy problem in this country, we have an illiteracy problem in New York City, and then we're focusing on banning books instead of bridging that gap and addressing the illiteracy problem, it just, to me, it shows that we don't have our priorities straight as a society.
How have you been able to bridge the gap yourself, given the fact that we're going through this right now? We know that there are subject matters that are uncomfortable to a lot of people, but
Yes.
yet and still, you're still finding a way to bridge that gap. How have you been able to do that with the people that you're connected to?
Yeah, no, thanks so much for asking this. I'm going to give a shout out to an amazing nonprofit called Start Lighthouse. They are working in the Bronx and they're also starting to work in Brooklyn to provide free books to kids in the Bronx and now in Brooklyn. And not only are the books for free, they're brand new, they also bring in the authors to speak to the students and to talk about their experience being an author. And they get to do an activity. Usually it's like a writing activity, and the students get to present their work. And it really hits so many areas. You know, it's developing the confidence for these students. It's an opportunity for students to meet a real life author that looks like them. I didn't meet a real author until I was in my mid 20s. Nonetheless, an author that actually looked like me and that came from a similar background. So allowing these students at, first grade, second grade, the opportunity to get signed books from the author and actually meet the author is an amazing experience. And that's one of the organizations I'm super excited to be collaborating with. And then on a personal level, one of the things that I've just been doing is I keep writing. Even though I know that my books will likely be banned in a lot of areas, I know that my books are important because I have my DMs will show you how many parents and kids get excited when they see plátanos, in a book, or they're so excited about my upcoming book, The Bronx is My Home. Like, oh my gosh, a book that talks about the Bronx, right? Like, yes, plátanos are love. People get excited when they see the illustrations because they're very beautiful black characters, with big hair. And they're talking about their culture with a huge sense of pride. So I know that these books are making a difference. And other authors that I'm in community with through Las Musas and the Bronx is Reading have also expressed the outpour of support for their books. So we know that our books are making a difference. And so we're just going to keep writing. They're
You
not
know,
going to silence us.
yeah, I want to talk for a minute because, you're just, I consider you to be an author. But then another context, somebody will say that she's a queer, Afro, Latinx, Dominican, and Puerto Rican storyteller. And immediately, once that comes out, we understand the bias that can be associated with that.
Absolutely.
Talk about how are you able to balance the queer component along with just being a storyteller, because an author and a storyteller, because we should be able to just view you as the author and the storyteller, and at the same time, regard you for saying, okay, I have this lifestyle and I identify as being queer, but not everybody gets to see it like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I gained a lot of the strength from feeling like an outsider for most of my life. I never felt like I belonged anywhere really. I was I grew up in a really like conservative Pentecostal household, and I've I was not able to be like my full self, but now that I've had that opportunity to be out in the world as my whole self, I just can't put myself back in boxes, even though I know there are certain communities that are already formulating opinions about me inaccurately before they even met me. So I know that that's a risk that I take by being proud of who I am and in all my intersectionality and complexity, but I do it because I know that there are other kids struggling to step into their own self and be their most authentic versions of themselves. And if I'm asking them to do it, I have to continue to do it day after day.
Yeah. Alyssa Reynoso-Morris, thank you so much for a very informative conversation. And certainly we're going to continue to follow the story about these books being banned, not just across the United States, but right here in New York. And if you do get a chance, we want our viewers to know that you can also be able to get copies of her books. And for more information, you can also visit her website at alyssaauthor.com, and then follow them on Twitter and Instagram at Reynoso-Morris. We encourage you to don't go anywhere. We got more Open coming up right after this.
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Jason, let's go see your room.
What do you think? We kept it a little spare, so you can decorate it how you like.
Dinner!
Go. Excellent. Soccer is fun. Yeah, I saw you guys out there. We're the family. Yeah! Oh, I thought you were on my team.
And welcome back. Fearless Plus is a digital platform offering a space where students can share their unique narratives, gain access to valuable resources, and unlock growth and developmental opportunities. We had the chance to speak with the founder and CEO of Fearless Plus, Deepali Vyas, and we're going to take a look at that right now.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate us being on the show and talking about all things fearless.
Yeah, well, it is a fearless initiative to really deal with the area of bridging the gap for so many students. And I want to take the time to really share a little bit about the work that you're doing, particularly when it comes to that development phase, because we understand that people develop at different paces. And part of what you're doing is really ensuring that that development continues even despite of a child's age.
That's right. I mean, I think one of the reasons why we founded Fearless was to empower future generations to succeed. And we're talking about success in their personal life, their academic life, and then eventually their professional lives. And what we're trying to do is equip them with the confidence, the mindset, and the tools to tackle the real world. And so a lot of times we think about traditional education and the reality of the working world, and there's a bit of that gap, and that's what we are trying to fill. We understand that everybody's experiences are unique. And one of the big things for us is when we are teaching or enriching students' lives with the content around real-world skills, such as emotional intelligence and things like that, we want them to be able to showcase that on a profile that shares their story and builds their narrative. And that's one of the key driving factors of our platform. We want to make sure that students are prepared and they are able to showcase a lot more about themselves and more than a test score or a grade on their report card.
Deepali, I know that you've been spending some time in District 75, and so you've been working with some schools out there. Give us a little insight as to what's going on in District 75 and the work that you've been able to accomplish.
Yeah, so really important, and we're really honored and privileged to be helping Bronx-based schools, and one of the districts, District 75, has implemented our Fearless platform. And with District 75, there's a lot of individual education plans. There's one-on-one teachings. There's a lot of special needs kids, and so we need to work with them as educators and administrators on their particular needs. So when you think about whether or not these students are going to have, what are they going to do beyond high school? What are their post-secondary plans? Whether it's college, whether it's going into the workforce, those are the things that Fearless is actually helping with. We're having them access content that's going to help their communication skills, also things like financial literacy, confidence building, storytelling, how they are actually going to interview and do mock interviews, think about negotiations, all the skills that you and I wish we had in high school. And that's the stuff that we're bridging the gap on. And for those students, they're able to create a really strong digital profile that they can put on their common application if they're applying to college, or on an internship application or a job application. We give them access to opportunities no matter what their path is in life post high school.
Give me your perspective. When it comes to parents, sometimes navigating this process can be a little bit rough, particularly when it comes to a child's development and issues. You were trying to get the best done for your child, but yet and still you understand that in addition to trying to make sure that your child is taken care of, you also have to deal with the system and sometimes the processes. But you also work with navigating parents through some of these processes that sometimes can be quite laborious. And from the mouths of some parents, a lot of red tape and a lot of stuff that I just don't get.
That's right. And so what we also do is provide parents a nice checklist of the things that they can be doing with their students and kids at home on how they should be progressing with their individualized plan. And so parents need just as many resources as the students do. And we want to make sure that, we are being really inclusive. It's not just on the teachers. It's not just on the guidance counselors. And it's not the burden of the students as well. It's all of us working together in order to create a plan and then set them up for success.
And so you've been doing this for a minute. Talk a little bit about yourself because, you're an educator and a mom, and I understand you used to work for Korn Ferry for about 22 years, and now you decided to, transition over and do this?
That's right. So I've had about 20 plus years of experience in executive search. And the cool part of my job was to get, really big executives into really interesting C-suite roles. And then during the pandemic, I started thinking about, I have a teenage son at home. What is he learning in school? What do I see in the reality of the workforce as I'm working with some of the biggest leaders in the Fortune 500? And where can I help? Where can I bottle this experience that I have and bring it to the younger generation? And a lot of the time that I spent was understanding, I know what a good leader looks like, right? I've spent I've reviewed over 100,000 resumes. I've interviewed over 40,000 executives. I know what good looks like, and I want to make sure that our young people understand what it means to be a strong, successful, emotionally intelligent person entering the workforce. And I think that's where the gap is. I think what's happening today is that, some statistics that I can share with you. People with higher emotional intelligence tend to earn more money than people with lower emotional intelligence, like $29,000 more. So that means over a lifetime, you can earn an additional $1.7 million. And schools aren't necessarily teaching emotional intelligence, and it's not their fault. But a child needs to be learning these skills because it's going to impact which college they get into, which jobs they eventually apply for. And so those are the things that we're bringing through our platform. We want these students to build these skills in order to be even more attractive to future employers and colleges.
When you talk about emotional intelligence and you bring those numbers into view, I think a lot of people will say, wow, that's a huge connection to make. And a lot of people sometimes, I mean, you dropped the gem on me. I totally was clueless on this, but there's so much attached to that.
Exactly. One of the things that we always say is that hard skills get you hired and soft skills get you fired, right? And that's a really big statement. When you think about the working world, a lot of times, yes, you can go in and maybe code and do your job, but you are working with other people, and that takes a lot more of these soft skills that we talk about. And soft skills are the things that are going to help you progress and thrive in the workforce. And those are the things that get you promoted. Those are the skills that you absolutely need in order to actually build and grow your career. And despite having all of that, right, you need to be able to start building your personal brand. And that's what we teach young people. Particularly in District 75, we are telling young people, as you're learning these skills, you need to be able to showcase them, because the world is now trending towards building a personal brand. You need to have a digital footprint that represents you in a holistic manner. When you think about, these colleges that are making big statements about, tests are optional. So how else are these young people supposed to stand out? And with the Fearless profile, they're able to do a 3-minute video elevator pitch. They can share their entire story, what they're passionate about. They can showcase their athletics. They can showcase all the clubs that they're involved in. It paints a broader picture about a student, and it really helps a college admissions officer understand who the student is, or a future employer. And they can realize, here's an extroverted person. I think they're going to be great for my sales team, and I really want to bring them into my particular organization. So these are the things that we want to have students be really prepared for. When high schools talk about college and career readiness, this is the stuff. It's the soft skills that we're trying to focus on in order to, again, promote academic and professional success.
Well, Deepali, you don't need me to tell you. I think you're on to something. So keep up the great work. And really, honestly, some very interesting things to know when it comes to really bridging the gap in child development. Thank you for what you're doing. And, of course, we're going to try to get some people tuned your way so that way they can get the necessary resources to advance their child and also for themselves as a parent. So thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much. And everybody can find us on fearlessplus.com. We're on social media. It's Fearless Plus, so you just spell it out, Plus. And one of the things that I'll leave your program with is think of us as LinkedIn meets TikTok meets Masterclass. We are trying to combine those platforms into one platform for a fearless future for our students.
All right. Well, thank you. Kind of stole my thunder there, but what I'll do is I'll tell our viewers again, if they do need some more information, please go visit the website at fearlessplus.com. And we encourage you, don't go anywhere. We got more open coming up right after this.
¿Qué color? Perfecto, mijo.
Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, mijo?
Donating to a pet's medical care is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
And we are back. Every year, approximately 1 in 5 New Yorkers experiences mental illness. It highlights the significance and, I should say, the significant impact on individuals within the community. But fortunately, there are therapy available, and that offers a valuable opportunity for individuals to effectively manage life's diverse challenges and then lead more fulfilling lives. And by engaging in therapy, a person can gain a deeper understanding of their emotions, their origins, and also learn effective coping strategies. We're pleased now to have sharing with us more clinical social worker Alexandra Perez, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share my knowledge with everyone.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you.
And I got to ask the question, when we talk about mental illness, how prevalent are we seeing it in our community?
It's really, really high. We're seeing that mostly children are experiencing a lot of mental health disorders such as anxiety, depression. We're seeing how this is impacting them in their school performances. So we're definitely seeing a rise within mental health illnesses across New York City.
Yeah. And so when we talk about our children and we talk about the numbers continue to rise, are there particular communities within our area that we're seeing rises?
Definitely, we're seeing, I can speak to you in terms of the Bronx itself. Definitely in the South Bronx, we're seeing a rise in mental health illnesses and communities where there's definitely a lot of poverty. That's rising a lot in terms of people being able to, having difficulties coping with like just life stressors.
Right. So for your job is really to help somebody through it, right? You're a clinical social worker. You talk to families, you talk to young people as well. Walk us through a little bit about what you do.
Sure. So if someone comes to me for help, we really want to be able to get a clear sense of like their history, their presenting problem. We want to get a large scope of what makes this individual, right? Like what are some of the things that this individual has struggled with in the past? What are some of the goals that they want to work on? And so in conversation, we develop a therapeutic relationship, and we're able to pinpoint what are the things that this individual is going to work on and grow, and we'll design a treatment modality that is going to help this person be successful in whatever goals they're developing with me in session.
You talk about therapeutic relationship, right? So a relationship takes time. You have to develop that relationship. We know that particularly in communities of color, that relationship becomes like, strained, because there's this huge stereotype barrier. People don't necessarily like to come to counselors, right? Like to seek therapy. Are we seeing more and more people become comfortable with the fact that I can come through the door, I can come see Alexandra?
It's still a challenge, because there is a stigma that, when you go to therapy, it means you're broken or there's something wrong with you, right? And so we're still working towards trying to break that stigma so that people can feel more comfortable going to therapy and being able to get the help that they need in order to solve some of their issues, presenting problems. So I have seen more and more people that are willing to come and speak, but there's still more work left to do in that area, for sure.
We think a lot about children. We think about young adults. We think about youth, right, when it comes to that. But when we see children, talk to me about children, the ability for them to be able to get help. Because there's so many children right now who are being affected by so many things that are going on in life and traumatic things. We think about school shootings. We think about all that's the macro level. But reality is that on a day-to-day life, what goes on with mom and dad, or no dad, no mom, that becomes something too. What's available for children at this stage?
So for children, they're more the most vulnerable population because in order for them to receive therapy, especially outside of their home and outside of their school, their parent has to be extremely involved in that process, right? So it's really urging parents to be able to provide that support to our kids in order for them to receive those services outside of their home. But, I think that in schools, there are programs that are in some schools in order for students to be able to get that support. Many schools have social workers, many schools have counselors that can provide some of that support. And so when possible, students will be able to get that within their school settings. But outside of school, it's really the parent who has to be that frontline person that helps them consistently obtain that help outside of their home.
To get help and to really be able to come through those doors is a huge step. What advice do you give to people who really know that they need to take that step, but whether they're afraid or maybe these misconceptions that are out there, they don't come through the door? What advice do you have?
I would say that it's important. It's important for people to overcome those stigmas that mental health carries. It's important for people to take that first step and reach for help and be able to obtain the knowledge and the skills that are going to help them deal with whatever stressors they're dealing with at home or in their community, right? So I do urge people to reach out to, there's definitely a lot of websites. BetterHelp is one of them, Psychology Today. I usually refer a lot of people to New York Psychotherapy. They're located in the Bronx and they accept referrals. And so they work with families and individuals. I myself see individuals and children and families. So there's the help is out there. It's just a matter of going out there and looking for it and being open to change.
Alexandra, in your work, talk to me about COVID, post-COVID. We consider this post-COVID. But now that we're coming out on the other side of it, what are you seeing coming through your doors by way of people and the need for services?
There's been such a huge impact COVID has had such a huge impact on people's mental health, children's mental health. I've seen a lot of children suffering from anxiety, children who don't want to go to school anymore because they're just afraid to be amongst a lot of people. I've seen children who are very depressed, individuals who are very depressed since COVID because they still haven't mourned the loss of their loved ones. They still haven't been able to mourn the loss of just their regular day-to-day life. Like COVID was such a fast-paced change for everybody, right? And so people have developed traumatic experiences from that. And we see a lot of people that are struggling with being able to deal with day-to-day life stressors that maybe prior to COVID wasn't a big deal, but since COVID, it's been harder for people to deal with, right? People have stressors like they can't find jobs, or they've lost their home since COVID. They've lost loved ones. So a lot of loss that people have had to deal with in a short amount of time. And so I'm seeing all of that in my practice.
Yeah. A lot of people sometimes won't come through the doors because of cost. There's a fear factor of, this is going to cost me a lot. This is highly expensive. But tell me about the cost and what's the cost associated with, really having therapy and counseling sessions.
But a lot of therapists like myself accept insurances, but if you don't have insurances, there's a sliding scale, and so it really depends on your income. And a lot of therapists like myself would be able to evaluate what would be a lower amount that you can pay, right? So if a session would be $65 per hour based on your income, it can be lower than that. So people can have ways of being able to pay for services. It's just a matter of starting the process and taking that first step.
And what if I'm that person I'm really financially challenged and I can't afford therapy? What are the options that are available for me?
Well, there's definitely resources that can assist people in obtaining Medicaid, for example, and Medicaid insurance, and being able to afford therapy through that type of insurance. So it's just a matter of being able to connect with your local agency and having that assistance.
Yeah. You spent the majority of your time of life right here in the Bronx, doing work in the Bronx and serving the Bronx. What do you say about the Bronx from your angle, and what can you give us an assessment as to what you're seeing through the lens of people?
I think I take a lot of pride in being able to give back to my community in this way. Like you said, I'm born and raised in the Bronx, and so being able to deliver some of my expertise to people and help people and families do better, it just gives me a lot of joy and satisfaction. I think that people in general are going to need to break through those stigmas and really try to gain access to mental health. And I think that our community leaders have to do an even better job in expanding some of the resources that are out there for people to obtain mental health services. And I foresee that if all these things can take place, like we as a community can do better.
What have you seen has been the greatest improvement in the work that you've been able to do lately?
I've seen my clients go from not knowing what they want to do in life to being able to start back in college and getting master's degrees and being able to really change their circumstances. I've seen families that are at a point of just everyone separating and divorce taking place to really coming together as a unit and striving. I've seen children who have not had any intentions of going to school, start going to school and being able to do well academically. So there's a wide variety of progress that I've been able to see with individuals, with families, through my work with them.
Yeah, well, Alexandra, I want to thank you for coming and sharing with us. And
You're very
thank you
welcome.
for the work that you do, as we say, highly impactful in the lives of people, and keep doing what you do. Sometimes you don't get the credit that you always deserve, but we'll give it to you here right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All righty. Well, now listen, if you want more information, you can schedule an appointment through her email at alexandraperez335@gmail.com. We encourage you to don't go anywhere. We'll be back more open right after this.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut. The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Dear moms and dads, what you have achieved here today is going to help us and our futures. It is why we are coming up on stage to collect your diplomas.
You know it's true.
Mom, we love you always.
Everything I do.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
I don't know why you're so sad. You've got a roof over your head.
Bro, you gotta stop with that depression stuff. That's a white people thing.
Escúchame, en esta casa los hombres no lloran.
You alright?
It just feels like it's coming from everywhere.
Do you want to talk about it?
Thanks for hearing me out, bro. Appreciate it.
You can talk to me if you're feeling sad.
Whenever you need to talk, I'm here, okay?
And we are back. St. Ignatius School is a tuition-free, co-educational Catholic Jesuit middle school in the South Bronx that's empowering low-income students of all faiths to unleash their full potential by providing a safe and nurturing environment. And we've got joining us now the school's head of the school, Rich Darrell, and we thank him for joining us. And Rich is from the St. Ignatius School, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Always love to talk about our school.
Yeah, and I mean, your school that's down there in the South Bronx, making a difference. And, you know, talk about the fact of how you got this school right there in the heart of the hood, if you will, and impacting the lives of so many.
Sure. What's unique about our school is that we're not just a middle school. We're an 11-year program, so students start in 6th grade. We journey with them through high school and college. And what makes us unique is that we have that time, that arc of spending so much time with them and providing them so many unique opportunities. And no matter what sort of level or where they're at in their lives that they come with, we're there to provide them with just a really quality education and give them experiences that they normally wouldn't have.
Yeah. As I led into our segment talking about it, you are a Jesuit school. Somebody may not be so familiar with what a Jesuit school is, so what does that mean?
We're a Jesuit Catholic school, as you said, so just like Fordham University, Fordham Prep, Xavier. What makes a Jesuit school unique is that we really care about the whole person. Really, it's all about academics, the social, emotional needs of any student that comes in, the spiritual, the intellectual. So we're really looking to provide our students with this whole wraparound experience. It's not just about academics, it's about becoming what we would say a man or woman formed with others, really providing many different experiences for them to grow.
And pretty unique because you have an 11-month year-round program. How does that program play out?
Sure. So students enter the school, and incoming 6th graders actually the first week of July, and they're with us for 5 weeks. 2 weeks in the Bronx, in Hunts Point, where our school is located, and then 3 weeks up in Lake Placid. So the students go away for a summer camp. 3 weeks, it's a unique experience. There's no phones, there's no TVs, no technology, so it's really building community, really building sisterhood and brotherhood. And we take those...
I'm going to cut you. How's that working? Because, listen, you take kids, you take technology away today, it's a problem. Well, how you manage it?
They're very busy. So they take classes in the morning, and then in the afternoon they're hiking, there's sports fields, there's arts and crafts, there's different activities to keep them busy. There's a film club, and they're busy throughout the day. And then in between, they're helping in the cafeteria cook. They're doing their laundry. They are cleaning up their cabins. And then there's a spiritual component at night, a reflection time where they get to reflect on the day. But really, the basis of it all is really building community and working together with their peers to handle conflict resolution, to figure out certain situations and push them to be leaders. And as I said before, these men and women form with others.
So they start in this they start this program in the summertime, works its way around throughout the course of the whole year. Are you finding that having that good foundation coming in the beginning sets the tone, if you will?
Absolutely. We didn't get to go up to camp for 3 years because of the pandemic. And we really noticed that in those years, coming back each September, our community was different. Last summer, the students went up to Lake Placid. They built that community, they built that foundation, and we had a great school year because of those. I think because they were able to handle those conflicts, able to work out their differences between each other, and really have that foundation to support each other. And then come back in September, and we're a middle school, so 6 to 8. We have an extended day, so students are in our building from 7:30 to 5 o'clock every day. They go through normal classes like any other middle schooler would, and then we have this wonderful after-school programming where there's study hall, there's all different kind of clubs and activities to keep them busy and enrich them.
When we talk about the St. Ignatius School, a small school of sorts, right? And I'm a proud graduate. I always tell people, Rice High School right there. It's no longer there in Harlem. But one of the things that was so beneficial to me growing up was the fact that I had that small classroom. And I think that's what helped me to excel. There are many students who actually benefit from having that small classroom. Talk about class size and how that's been an impact.
Absolutely. I think you're totally right on that. So that's what makes us unique. We're a smaller school. But I say small school, big impact. We have 85 students in the school. Classes are generally 12 to 15 students. So it really allows us as a staff to really get to know the students, to really push them, and to provide just a unique opportunity for learning. As I said, small classes, but great impact because of that.
Yeah. So we don't just take care of students while they're in school. After they graduate, there's some help that's actually available for them.
Yeah, as I said before, 11-year program. So we have a dedicated staff that helps our students get into high schools all around the city, whether that's parochial, private, independent, public charter, whatever really fits the needs of our students. So that dedicated staff member supports them through the high school admissions process and then monitors them while they're in high school, continuing that relationship with them and their parents, making sure they're on track. Additionally, we have a ton of services within that graduate support program, whether that's resume writing, college application process, college essay writing. We do college tours with our graduates, really giving them those experiences that they really need.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we've really want to now support our students is even in college now, where we have a wonderful graduation rate of over 90% of our graduates are able to go off, graduate high school, get into these wonderful, prestigious universities around the country. And we noticed that they were struggling a little acclimating on campus. So what we did is we started our GSP 2.0 and supporting them in ways that maybe their parents or their families can't, giving them stipends for books, travel, getting parents up there, really giving them some of the opportunities that other students in colleges normally get.
Let me merge a little bit of what I talked with Alexandra in the last segment about, because she talked about being in the borough of the Bronx and that huge challenge with mental illness and the need for clinical social workers. How are you able to deal and provide services for students? Because we understand, even though you got some great students, you got a great graduation rate, a lot of life happens. So.
Absolutely. I'm happy to say that we're a student-centered school, so we're trauma-informed and we really care about the mental health needs of our students. We have an amazing counselor that supports our students and our teachers, so it's the whole program. But I think she was totally right. Our youth, especially coming out of the pandemic, have been really truly affected mentally by that and by their surroundings. Again, in order for you to succeed academically, you need to have a clear mind and you need to be able to really focus in on those wraparound services. Our students come to school, they feel safe, they feel supported, and that allows them to grow and succeed.
Yeah, how much have you had to make a pivot since the pandemic?
A lot, and especially in that area, the social emotional well-being of students, supporting our staff, and really meeting the needs of not only our students but our families too. Our families have suffered, part of what makes our school unique is that we're tuition free, and we work with low-income families, underserved families. That's really the tenet of our work and our mission. So it's not really just a school, it's like a family here. So we're supporting our families. We partner with different organizations in Hunts Point in the South Bronx to get them, whether it's food, we have a ESL class, we have different types of supports that not just wrap around with the students, but the families as well, trying to give them every opportunity to succeed.
Yeah. So the last question I'll ask you before we wrap is, students who are saying, listen, or a parent who's saying, listen, how do I get my child in a school like this? It's tuition free, that's great, but what do I do?
Well, you can visit our website. It's www.sisnativity.org. You can call the school. We could share that information. We have open house in the fall. And you come, you see the schools, meet our students, meet our teachers, meet our families, and then go through a process of an application process. We're not looking for the best students. We're looking for students that just want to take an opportunity, a family that just says, hey, that's a really unique opportunity, and I want my son or daughter to take advantage of something like that. So really, that's the way.
For a lot of students, it's an opportunity to enjoy the summer. Summer break is now here. What's it like for you?
Still working. Camp's going on at school right now. Like I said earlier, the kids are with us for 2 weeks in the Bronx. They're doing academic work and then getting ready to go up to Lake Placid on July 8th, and I'll go up and visit them as well.
Well, good to have you. Thank you for being with us, and congratulations for the great work that you're doing at the school, and hopefully we'll get some parents to get connected to you and get some more students.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All righty. Well, listen, if you want more information, visit the website at sisnativity.org, right? Got that right. All right, follow them on Instagram at St. Ignatius School Bronx. I want to let you know that unfortunately we come to the end of our show today. I want to thank all of our guests for joining us, and most of all, you, the viewer, for tuning in now. If you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the Recablecast on Optimus Channel 67, Verizon Files Channel 2133, or watch us anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. And if you want, come back on Friday. Get my girl, Rena Valentine. You can catch a brand new episode of Open with her. She specializes in the arts as well as entertainment. As for me, well, that wraps up this episode of Open. I'm Daren Jaime saying take care, God bless, but most of all, make sure you keep this channel wide open. We'll see you soon.